Hi, this is Nicholas Yott, a registered education and migration agent from Pathway to Oz. Today I'm going to discuss with you DAMA, or the Designated Area Migration Agreement visa, which is a new, it's actually not a different type of visa, it's actually a specific kind of TSS employer-sponsored visa. These visas were created so that employers in specific regional areas desperately in need of employees will be able to get them. However, please note that to be able to apply for the DAMA visa, it's a typical 482 visa, so you first need to find an employer that's willing to nominate you. What's so great about the DAMA visa is that it allows applicants in certain occupations a pathway to permanent residency that they wouldn't usually have. It may also allow for certain people who are older, above a certain age, to also access permanent residency. So what makes it different from the standard TSS visa? Well, firstly, as I mentioned before, it can lead to permanent residency. So unlike, standard 482 employer-sponsored visas with an occupation which is on the STSOL, this visa, the DAMA visas, can lead to permanent residency. So for example, a restaurant manager living in Sydney on a 482 visa, there's no real pathway to PR. But a restaurant manager living in one of these DAMA regions and under this specific visa can transition to permanent residency, or should be able to transition to permanent residency. In addition, there are additional jobs available to applicants applying for this specific visa. So you don't have to just look at the standard STSOL list. You can look at each specific region has their own list of specific jobs that they want. So there's a lot of occupations like childcare worker or bar attendant, which might be under one of these different areas. So also these areas, or the specific DAMA areas, may also allow you to get the visa if you don't meet the specific visa requirements. So there are often concessions available for things such as maybe your English, or the salary you receive, or your age. Once again, it all comes down to the specific DAMA region. So where are these DAMA areas? Well, there's 6 at the moment, but that is expected to grow. The first, Adelaide and South Australia, Northern Territory. You have far north Queensland, so pretty much from Cairns and above. You've then got a few other smaller areas, such as Orana in regional New South Wales. I think it's like Great South Coast in Victoria, so down near Warrnambool, and the Goldfields up in WA, so up near Kalgoorlie. Below you'll find a link to the websites of all the specific areas, so you can check it out. So what occupations can apply for this visa? Well, each specific area has a list of occupations that they need filled. So no list is exactly the same for each area. So the list is actually quite extensive, and there's a lot of different jobs on there which aren't on any other government list. So, I'd strongly advise, if you do have an occupation which is not on the STSOL, or it's not on the, even on the regional list, check out these DAMA lists, because it could be on there and it could be your chance for permanent residency. So what are the requirements for the visa? Well, unless there are concessions specified by these specific DAMA areas, it's a standard sort of 482 employer-sponsored visas. So firstly, you need to be nominated by an employer that's allowed to actually nominate you in one of these areas. You need to meet the English requirement. So, standard IELTS of 5 with no score lower than 4.5. You need to be offered an employment contract meeting the TSMIT, and also the employee needs to have the relevant work experience and usually 2 years post-qualification work experience to fill the role. As mentioned before, these areas do have concessions for a lot of the jobs, meaning some jobs might not need to pay you as much, or you might not need to have, the work experience, or things like your English might not need to be as high as it is as well. You'd need to check out the specific areas and the agreements for what they have. Okay, so how do these visas lead to permanent residency? Immigration wants to make moving to these areas as appealing as possible. The only real way to do this is to offer, the option of permanent residency or transitioning to permanent residency in the end. So many standard 482 or TSS visas don't have this opportunity, but if you do go to a DAMA region in this specific agreement, you do, or you may. So each DAMA region, once again, has their own specific requirements for permanent residency, but usually, it'll just involve you going to that area, working there for 2 to 4 years, maybe 3 years. And then after 3 years working for the employer, you can then usually transition over to the permanent employer-sponsored 186 visa. So say, for example, you're a childcare worker, and you are living and working, if you're a childcare worker, you can't even get sponsored in Sydney for a 482 visa. But childcare worker is on the list for up in far north Queensland. So if you meet the requirements and get nominated by an employer up there, you can move up there, work for 3 years, and then you may be able to then transition over onto the permanent employer-sponsored visa, so the permanent 186 visa. Please note, all the information today is general in nature. If you want to speak to a migration professional about your specific situation, feel free to contact Pathway to Oz. Thank you.